But 3 days after we buried Dad, my brother Marcus changed the locks on our family home and told me through the window, "Go back to your husband's house." Dad left everything to his son, not some married daughter. The snow in Portland that morning was falling so hard I could barely see his face behind the glass, but I could hear the satisfaction in his voice perfectly clear. I stood there on the porch where I'd spent every summer of my childhood, my suitcase at my feet, wearing Dad's old jacket because it still smelled like him. The jacket I'd grabbed from his closet the night he died, when I'd stayed up holding his hand until his last breath. Marcus knew I'd been there. He'd been in Vegas with his wife Stephanie, posting photos of their much-needed vacation while Dad was in hospice asking for him. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 28 years old, and until 3 days ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I teach second grade at Jefferson Elementary, and I make $32,000 a year. My husband Derek teaches high school math, and together we rent a one-bedroom apartment because that's all we can afford in this city. We'd been staying at Dad's house for the past 6 months, taking care of him after his stroke. Dad had built his architecture firm from nothing, and the house he'd designed himself in the West Hills was worth at least $2 million. He'd always said it would be mine someday because I was the one who loved it like he did. But apparently, I was wrong. The hospice bills had wiped out most of Dad's savings. The lawyer, Mr. Patterson, had read the will 2 days ago in his downtown office. Marcus got the house, the remaining $70,000 in the bank, and Dad's vintage car collection. I got Dad's watch and his drafting table. "Your father felt that married daughters should build their lives with their husbands, Mr. Patterson had said, not quite meeting my eyes. And sons carry on the family legacy." I'd sat there in shock, unable to speak. Derek had squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's okay, we'll be okay." But it wasn't about the money. It was about every Saturday I'd spent with Dad at his drafting table, learning to draw. Every late night we'd stayed up talking about design and dreams. Every single day of the last 6 months when I'd fed him, bathed him, read to him, while Marcus couldn't even be bothered to call. Now I was standing in the snow, and my brother was closing the curtains. I pulled Dad's jacket tighter around me and walked to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I sat there for a long time, the engine running, the heat slowly filling the car. I looked up at the house, at the wide windows Dad had designed to catch the morning light, at the cherry tree he'd planted when I was born. 28 years ago, he'd told me that tree and I would grow up together. He'd been right. Every spring, it bloomed the most beautiful pink blossoms. I wondered if Marcus would cut it down. The drive back to our apartment took 40 minutes through the snow. Derek was at school, teaching. I let myself in and stood in our tiny living room, looking at the boxes we'd packed from Dad's house. My clothes, my books, the drafting table Dad had left me, still in pieces, leaning against the wall. His watch was on the kitchen counter. I picked it up. It was a vintage Omega, probably worth $5,000. Dad had worn it every single day of his adult life. I sat down on our secondhand couch and cried for the first time since he'd died. That night, Derek and I ate takeout Thai food in silence. Finally, he said, "Maybe we should talk to another lawyer, get a second opinion." "With what money?" I asked. "We can barely afford rent." "Maya, it's not right. You took care of him. You were there." "Apparently that doesn't matter." I pushed my pad thai around the container. Dad must have felt like Marcus needed it more. Or maybe he really did believe that married daughters don't need anything from their fathers. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Dad had never been traditional. He'd encouraged me to go to college, to pursue teaching, to marry for love even though Derek came from nothing. He'd walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes and told me he was proud of the woman I'd become. Something didn't add up. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I couldn't face a classroom full of 7-year-olds asking why I looked so sad. Instead, I started going through the boxes from Dad's house, looking for something, anything that might explain his decision. Derek had already left for school. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of rain against the windows. In the third box, under a stack of Dad's old architectural drawings, I found a shoebox I'd never seen before. Inside were letters, cards I'd made him as a child, a photo of us at my college graduation, and at the very bottom, a USB drive with a piece of masking tape on it that said, in Dad's handwriting, for Maya. Play this, if anything happens to me. My hands started shaking again. I grabbed my laptop and plugged in the USB drive. There was one video file, dated 3 months ago. I clicked play. Dad's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his office at home, the one with the view of the cherry tree. He looked tired but alert. This was before the stroke, when he could still speak clearly. "Maya," he said, and hearing his voice made my throat close up. "If you're watching this, I'm gone, and I'm guessing things didn't go the way I planned. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." He shifted in his chair, and I could see he was holding papers. 3 months ago, Marcus came to me with Stephanie. They told me they were in serious financial trouble. Marcus had gotten involved in some cryptocurrency investment scheme, and they'd lost everything, including money they'd borrowed from some very dangerous people. They needed $200,000 immediately, or they said there would be consequences. My stomach dropped. Dad continued, "I didn't have that kind of liquid cash, especially with the medical bills from my treatments. But they had a solution. They wanted me to take out a reverse mortgage on the house and give them the money. I refused. This house is your inheritance, Maya. You're the one who loves it. You're the one who understands what I built here." He paused, and I could see his jaw tighten. Marcus got angry. He said I'd always loved you more. That I'd always favored you, because you were the youngest. Because you were the daughter. He said if I didn't help him, I'd never see him again. And then Stephanie said something that made everything clear. She said, "We know about the new will you drafted with Maya. We know you're leaving her everything. But wills can be changed, Henry, or they can be challenged, or they can disappear. And sick old men sometimes make mistakes about what they're signing." I felt ice in my veins. "That's when I realized what they were capable of," Dad said. "So I made a plan. I told them I'd think about it. Then I went to see my lawyer, Mr. Patterson, who I'd worked with for 30 years. And I found out that Patterson plays golf with Marcus every week. They're friends. I couldn't trust him." Dad leaned closer to the camera. "So I went to a different lawyer, Rebecca Torres, downtown. And I made a new will. The real will. In it, you get everything, Maya. The house, the money, the cars, everything. Because you're the one who earned it. Not by being my son, but by being my daughter. By being there. By caring. By loving this house and this life the way I do." Tears were streaming down my face. "But I knew Marcus and Stephanie would try something," Dad continued. "So I kept the fake will with Patterson, the one that gives Marcus everything. I figured when I died, they'd relax. They'd think they'd won. And maybe, just maybe, they'd slip up. They'd say something, do something. So I've been recording every conversation I have with them, Maya. Every phone call, every visit. It's all on this drive." He held up a small recording device. "After I'm gone, you take this to Rebecca Torres. Her office is on 3rd Avenue, Suite 802. You give her this drive. She has the real will, and she has instructions. You'll get what's rightfully yours. And Maya, I'm sorry I had to do it this way. I'm sorry you had to hurt for even a day, but I needed to protect you. I needed to make sure they couldn't contest the will, couldn't claim undue influence, couldn't do any of the things Stephanie threatened. This way, there's proof. There's evidence of their intentions. There's justice." He smiled, and it broke my heart. "I love you, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. You're going to do amazing things with that house. I know you will. You always had the vision, just like me. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You're a Chen, and Chens build things that last." The video ended. I sat there, staring at the blank screen, my mind racing. I played the video again, then again. Then I started looking at the other files on the USB drive. There were dozens of audio recordings. I clicked on one labeled Marcus, November 15. Marcus's voice filled my apartment. "Dad, I'm telling you, we need that money now. These people don't care that you're sick. They want their money by the end of the month or they're coming after us. You want your grandkids to grow up without parents? You want that on your conscience?" Dad's voice weaker. "Marcus, I've told you, I can't access that much cash right now. Then sign the papers for the reverse mortgage. It's your house. You can do what you want with it. And leave Maya with nothing? She's been taking care of me. She gave up her life. Maya has a husband. She doesn't need your house. I'm your son. Doesn't that mean anything? Of course it does. But nothing. You're choosing her over your own son. Fine. Don't come crying to me when something bad happens to us. Don't come to my funeral, Dad. The recording ended. My hands were clenched into fists. I opened another one, this time with Stephanie's voice. Henry, we need to talk about the will. Marcus told me about the one you showed him, where Maya gets everything. That's not going to work for us. Stephanie, that's between me and my children. Is it? Because Marcus is drowning in debt right now. Debt he took on partly because you always told him the house would be his someday. He made decisions based on that promise. And now you're going back on it? I never promised. You implied it. And implications have legal weight, Henry. If you leave everything to Maya, we'll contest the will. We'll tie it up in probate for years. Maya will spend everything you leave her just on lawyer fees. Is that what you want? Are you threatening me? I'm just explaining reality, but there's an easier way. You make a new will, you leave the house and the money to Marcus. You give Maya some sentimental items to keep her happy. Everyone wins. No fights, no court, no mess. Isn't that better? Stephanie, I need to think. Think fast, Henry. We don't have time. And make sure you use Patterson for the will. He understands family dynamics. He'll make sure everything is fair. Click. I listened to every single recording. Hours of them. Conversations where they guilted Dad, where they threatened him, where Stephanie suggested that old men with strokes sometimes get confused about legal documents, where Marcus talked about how easy it would be to claim Dad wasn't mentally competent when he signed the will if it didn't favor them. They'd planned everything. And Dad had recorded it all. By the time Derek came home, I'd made my decision. I told him everything, showed him the video, played him some of the recordings. His face went from shocked to angry to determined. We're going to that lawyer tomorrow, he said. Rebecca Torres. We're getting what's yours. But Derek, they'll fight. They'll claim the USB is fake, or that I manipulated Dad somehow. Let them try. Derek's jaw was set in a way I'd rarely seen. Your father was a brilliant man. He documented everything. He covered every angle. That's what architects do, right? They plan for every possibility. He was right. Dad had built his case like he'd built his houses. Solid. Unshakable. Designed to last. The next morning, I called Rebecca Torres's office and made an emergency appointment. Her secretary said she'd been waiting for my call. Rebecca Torres was a sharp woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her office was filled with law books and photos of her family. She stood up when we entered and shook my hand firmly. Maya Chen, your father told me so much about you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, I managed. I found the USB drive. Her eyes lit up. Good. May I see it? I handed it over. She plugged it into her computer and spent the next 2 hours going through every file while Derek and I sat there, drinking coffee she'd ordered for us. Finally, she turned to me. This is ironclad, she said. Your father didn't just document their threats. He documented his mental competency. Look at these dates. Every time he recorded a conversation with Marcus or Stephanie, he also recorded himself completing cognitive tests, math problems, memory exercises. He even has recordings of conversations with his doctor discussing his mental state. He knew they'd claim he wasn't competent when he made the real will, so he built a record proving otherwise. So what happens now? I asked. Now we file the real will with probate court. We notify Marcus and Mr. Patterson that the will they probated was superseded by a more recent will. We provide evidence of fraud and undue influence. And we ask for an emergency hearing to freeze all assets until this is resolved. How long will that take? With evidence this strong? 2 weeks, maybe 3. The court doesn't like fraud, especially when it's this well documented. I felt something loosen in my chest. And Marcus? What happens to him? Rebecca's expression hardened. That depends on whether he wants to fight. If he does, all of these recordings become public record. Everyone will hear what he and Stephanie did to a dying man. If he's smart, he'll accept the real will and walk away. If he's not, she shrugged. Let's just say threatening and manipulating a vulnerable adult has legal consequences beyond just losing an inheritance. We filed everything that afternoon. Rebecca said she'd handle the notification to Marcus and Mr. Patterson personally. I want to see their faces, she said with a small smile. The next day, my phone started ringing. Marcus, Stephanie. Numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. Rebecca had told me not to. Let them sweat, she'd said. Let them wonder what you know. A week later, I got a call from Rebecca. We have our hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Can you be there? Yes, I said immediately. Good, because Marcus wants to settle. My heart jumped. Settle? He knows he's beaten Maya. His own lawyer heard the recordings and told him he doesn't have a case. Mr. Patterson is being investigated by the Bar Association for ethical violations. Marcus wants to sign everything over to you in exchange for you agreeing not to press criminal charges. Criminal charges? Elder abuse, fraud, attempted theft. The prosecutor's office has already reached out to me. They want to know if you're willing to testify. I thought about Dad. About his last months, when he'd been too weak to walk but strong enough to fight for me in the only way he could. About Marcus showing up to the funeral with a black suit and crocodile tears, already planning which furniture he'd sell first. I want to hear him admit what he did, I said. In court, on record. Then I'll decide. Rebecca smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The hearing was in a small courtroom downtown. Marcus and Stephanie were there with their lawyer, a tired-looking man who clearly wanted to be anywhere else. Mr. Patterson was there too, looking pale and nervous. Derek sat beside me, holding my hand. The judge was a black woman in her 60s, named Judge Williams. She'd reviewed all the evidence beforehand. When everyone was settled, she looked at Marcus over her glasses. Mr. Chen, I've listened to the recordings your father made. Would you like to explain yourself? Marcus shot a glance at his lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, my father was very sick. He was confused. My sister had been staying with him for months, and I believe she influenced him to make those recordings. Our family dynamics were complicated, and— Stop, Judge Williams said, and her voice could have cut glass. I'm 63 years old, Mr. Chen. I'm not confused. And your father didn't sound confused on those recordings. He sounded like a man who knew exactly what was happening. A man who was documenting attempted fraud by his own son. Marcus's face went red. Stephanie grabbed his hand. The judge continued. What I want to know is this. Did you or did you not threaten your father? Did you or did you not pressure him to change his will while he was dying? Did you or did you not plan to challenge any will that didn't favor you? Silence. Answer the question, Mr. Chen. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. I'm sorry. The court reporter needs to hear you. Yes, Marcus said louder. Yes. I did all of those things. But, Your Honor, I was desperate. My wife and I were in debt. So you decided to steal from your dying father and your sister? Judge Williams shook her head. I've reviewed the will drafted by Miss Torres. It's clear, unambiguous, and executed while your father was demonstrably competent. I'm ruling that this is the valid will. All property, money, and assets go to Maya Chen, as your father intended. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to vacate the house within 72 hours and return all property you've removed from it. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus whispered. Good. Now, the prosecutor's office has asked whether Miss Chen wishes to press charges. Miss Chen? I stood up. I looked at Marcus. I really looked at him. He couldn't meet my eyes. Stephanie was crying quietly. No, I said. I don't want to press charges. Rebecca looked at me in surprise, but I continued. My father spent the last months of his life protecting me from you. He spent his energy, his time, his clarity of mind documenting your cruelty. I'm not going to spend my time on revenge. You've already lost everything that matters. You've lost Dad's respect. You've lost your inheritance. You've lost your sister. That's enough. Judge Williams nodded slowly. That's very gracious of you, Miss Chen. Mr. Chen, do you understand how lucky you are? Marcus nodded, still not looking up. Then I suggest you spend the rest of your life proving you deserved your sister's mercy. This court is adjourned. 3 days later, Derek and I stood in the living room of Dad's house. Our house now. Marcus had moved out, taking only his personal belongings. Everything else was exactly as Dad had left it. His books on the shelves, his drafting tools in the office, his watch on the dresser in the master bedroom. I walked through every room, remembering. The kitchen where he'd taught me to make his mother's dumplings. The office where we'd worked on designs together. The bedroom where I'd sat with him at the end, reading him his favorite poems until he drifted away. And outside, through the wide windows, the cherry tree stood bare against the winter sky, waiting for spring. Derek came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about what Dad said in the video. About doing amazing things with this house. About having vision. And..." I turned to face him. "I want to turn the bottom floor into a learning center. Free tutoring for kids whose parents can't afford it. Art classes, music lessons, a library. I want to use Dad's money to hire teachers and buy supplies. I want this house to be what Dad always wanted it to be. A place where beautiful things are built." Derek's eyes got bright. "He'd love that. We'd live upstairs. It's plenty of space for us. Maybe someday for kids of our own. And the garage can be workshop space for the students." Dad had all those tools. All that equipment. It shouldn't just sit there. "Maya Chen's Learning Center," Derek said, trying it out. "No," I said. "The Henry Chen Foundation. Because he built this, not just the house, the whole future. He planned it, designed it, and made sure it would last. Just like he always did. We spent the next 3 months getting everything ready. I used part of the inheritance to hire contractors to renovate the bottom floor into classrooms and a library. We registered as a nonprofit. I put up flyers at my school and in the neighborhood. Derek helped me design the curriculum. Marcus sent one email, asking if he could come see the house when it was done. I didn't respond. On the day we opened, 50 kids showed up. 50 kids from families who couldn't afford extra help, who struggled with reading or math or just needed a safe place to go after school. 50 kids who walked through the door of Dad's dream house and found people who cared. I taught art in the room with the cherry tree view. Through the window, I could see the blossoms were starting to open. Pink and perfect, just like always. I thought about what Dad had said, that the tree and I would grow up together. We had. And now we were making room for others to grow too. That night, after all the students had gone home and Derek was in the office doing paperwork, I sat at Dad's old drafting table in our bedroom upstairs. I pulled out his watch and put it on my wrist. It was too big, but I didn't care. I thought about everything that had happened. About Marcus and his greed. About Stephanie and her manipulation. About Mr. Patterson and his betrayal of Dad's trust. About how close they'd come to winning. But more than that, I thought about Dad's quiet strength. The way he'd faced their threats and planned around them. The way he'd protected me even when he was dying. The way he'd built one final structure, invisible and perfect. A framework of evidence and love that would outlast him. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a lesson plan or a grant proposal, but a letter. To Dad. Telling him everything. How his plan had worked. How the house was alive with children's voices now. How the cherry tree was blooming. How I was going to make sure his legacy lasted. I wrote until my hands cramped. And when I was done, I saved the file as, "Dear Dad, you were right." Then I printed it, folded it carefully, and put it in the box with all the cards and letters I'd found. Someday, maybe my own children would read it. Maybe they'd understand what their grandfather had built and why it mattered. Outside my window, the cherry blossoms glowed in the moonlight. And somewhere, I like to think, Dad was watching them too. Watching his daughter and his tree, both still growing, both still reaching toward the light. The house he'd built was no longer just walls and windows and carefully calculated angles. It was something more. It was proof that love could be stronger than greed, that planning could defeat cruelty, that one man's vision could change dozens of lives. Marcus never came to see it. I heard through mutual friends that he and Stephanie had moved to California, starting over somewhere no one knew their story. I hoped they'd found peace. I hoped they'd learned something. But mostly, I just hoped they'd leave us alone. Because we had work to do. Derek and I. And the Henry Chen Foundation. We had kids to teach. And dreams to build. And a legacy to honor. We had a cherry tree to watch bloom every spring. And a house full of laughter and learning and life. We had everything Dad had planned for us. Everything he'd fought for. Everything he'd believed we deserved. And every single day, When I walked past his picture in the hallway, I whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for teaching me that the best revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's building something so beautiful. They'll spend the rest of their lives wishing they'd been part of it."